Thank you. Madam Clerk, can I have a roll call?
Mr. Elmser,
Here.
Mr. Espada,
Present.
Chair Ivy,
Here.
Mr. East,
Here.
Commissioner Hill. Here. Mr. J.
Present.
Yeah. Mr. Long,
Here.
Mr. Murdock,
Present.
Mayor Sheedy. Yes, I am. You have a quorum.
Thank you so much. Moving on to item B, comments from the floor by the public. Do we have public comments, Madam Clerk?
None at this time.
Okay, go ahead and close that item. Move on to item C. We have a consent agenda has a number of things on it. I can take a motion to approve, or if I have an item that someone wants to remove, Mr. Squatted.
Yes, I'd like to have C3 pulled just so we can have a walkthrough and discussion and go from there.
Okay, so do you want to move?
So I'll move to approve the consent agenda, minus C3 that will be discussed, Paul.
Okay, so I have a motion by Mr. Squaga, second by Mr. J, to approve the consent agenda items C1 and C2. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item C3, which is ratification of retention of Argentum law. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Kennedy. This is his item that he's bringing to us, so he can give us a little bit of a brief couple comments, and then I know Mr. Squaga has some questions, and if anybody else does, we'll go there. So, Mr. Kennedy?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, the board is aware I've left Dickinson Wright. I am now with Argentum Law. I have been RSCVA General Counsel for probably about 10, 12 years now. And I'm asking the RSCVA to come with me over to Argentum Law. I've attached an engagement letter to the materials. That engagement letter is verbatim, the one that we have in place with Dickinson Wright. It's the same flat monthly fee, $8,000, same scope of work. We haven't changed anything there. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to entertain.
Mr. Squaga?
Yeah, and again, I think it's a big enough item that as a board, we gotta make the decision, and I'm good. I think we've all been happy with the services and the relationship. Is there a release from Dickinson Wright that we need to be aware of? Is it verbal? And then secondly, is there a term of this contract where were we under a term with Dickinson Wright? And if we were, what was the end date for them?
Sure. So this engagement has always been 30 days. Either party can terminate on 30 days notice. I've had the discussion with Dickinson Wright, explained the move. I went over to Argentum in early March, so first week in March. And we've agreed that Dickinson Wright will submit an invoice through the end of February. And that will be the end of the Dickinson Wright engagement. And then going forward, it'll be with Argentum.
And there is no defined end date here, just a 30-day with Argentum, right?
It's that engagement letter you have is verbatim, the existing engagement letter to Dickinson.
Any other questions? Does anyone else have questions? Mr. J.
Thank you. Under the review of agreement, it says that every agreement will review the regular scheduling, blah, 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 every 3 years. Are we to assume that this is a 3-year contract starting March 1, going to February 28th of 2027?
So that's the first review in the letter, and that's what it's always been. But I mean, the board is free to, if we want to ever have the discussion, I'm not saying we have to wait 3 years. If in 6 months, the board wants to have a review and discussion, it's their prerogative.
Okay.
It's really a 30-day agreement.
Okay, 30-day agreement. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Kennedy, when was how long has your contract been with RSCVA, and when was the last time it has opened, or have we had a conversation about it recently, or?
So it originally was, so the firms that I've been with have had the RSCVA contract since I started practicing 20 years ago. So it was Jones Vargas, Gold and Silver, Dickinson Wright, and Argentum. And yes, periodically there's a review, goes out to bid. They look at other firms. I think the last time That discussion was had maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Madam Chair, Mr. Kennedy, if we don't move forward with the contract today, do we not have legal representation?
So I'm your lawyer, whether I have a contract or not, the contract is what entitles me to be paid.
Okay.
So no, I'm not gonna fold up my books and walk out. But I would like to have a contract.
So, Madam Chair, Mr. Kennedy, if we don't move forward today, we not paying for legal representation. That means
It means you don't have I don't have a contract that I can say, hey, you owe me X dollars.
Madam Chair, Mr. Kennedy, do we not have a contract with it? I mean, would we just sort of be without legal representation at that point contractually?
Contractually, yes,
Okay,
but
that's what I mean.
professionally, I'm a lawyer, understand, on my bus.
Appreciate that, but contractually we would not have a contract today.
Correct, okay.
Any other questions, Mr. Murdock?
Thank you, Madam Chair. What is the policies regarding contracting with the RSCVA? Do we have any policy in place that you review every 5 years, 10 years? What is our policy?
We don't, so it's a professional service, it's exempt from competitive bidding, so you you're not happy. If you don't want us here, we don't want to be here. That's not a good relationship, right? So,
Thank you.
open for review at any time.
Thank you.
Okay. Sure.
So the $8,000 has been set a while ago. Obviously, you've been keeping track of your time throughout that time. How often do you go over? How often are you under on that $8,000?
Sure. So the 8,000, the last engagement letter was 2015, was the Dickinson Wright engagement letter. It was 8,000. It hasn't gone up in 9 years. Typically always over, but for me, it's a good trade-off. It's work I like doing. And also the longer I've done it, I've become more efficient. I do 100% of the work. I don't delegate any of it to associates or anything like that. And so even though my rate has gone up, I'm more efficient with the work I do. And so it's manageable, but it's typically.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Without motion to approve.
Okay, that's what I was looking for. As you know, that's where I was.
What's it say? Give me a motion.
I'll second.
That's what I would be, you said it before. So, motion by Mayor Sheedy. Stephen, your second?
Yep.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Commissioner Hill. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, so we'll go ahead and move on to item D1, RSCVA President, CEO. We are basically starting process this morning. Actually, I'm gonna maybe I'll let our search firm, Tina and Dennis, do you want to open this on how we're going to proceed this morning with our CEO presentation?
Yeah.
There or here?
Good morning, Board, Madam Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to conduct the President and CEO search on behalf of the RSCVA. We had a great interest, 148 prospective candidates. We had numerous conversations with board members, stakeholders, staff in September to gather feedback on what you were looking for in your next president. Open it up for general interview questions that may be remaining after your one-on-one sessions. Questions?
Sounds good. Any questions for, Tina? Okay,
Thank you.
with that, Mr. Lerga.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Good morning, legal. Glad to have everybody here. For the record, my name is Mike Larraguetta. I am the Vice President of Sales and currently the interim president and CEO for the Reno Sparks Convention and Visitors Authority. Sure, on Zoom. What happens when you're not allowed to practice? Hey, go ahead, next out of this. Yes, okay, great. Thank you, Mike. Okay, thank you, Mike. Again, good morning, everybody. Mike Larraguetta, interim president, CEO, Reno Sparks Convention and Visitors Authority, and also vice president of sales. It's a pleasure to be here today. First of all, before I jump into my presentation, I would like to acknowledge and thank Tina and Dennis and the Winter Partner team for your guidance, professionalism, and more importantly, your patience through the entire process. Thank you. Appreciate it very much. Thank you. The past few months, I've been asked the same question over and over and over. Why do you, Mike, want to be the next president and CEO of the RSCVA? It is obvious that I truly enjoy my role as the vice president of sales in this organization. I've held this post for over 7 years now. We've assembled an incredibly talented, respected, and experienced team and have met and exceeded the board room night goal, the board approved room night goal for 7 consecutive years. We've established a facility and sales and events team that has significantly increased our facility revenues for the past 20 months. So back to the question, why do I want to be the next CEO and president of RSCVA? The past 8.5 months as interim president and CEO, we have proven when you have a unified staff, a unified leadership team, and a unified board, that we can achieve anything that we put our minds to. This is something to celebrate and something that I truly want to be a part of. I believe in this team, and staff morale has never been higher. I understand what Reno Tahoe's opportunities are, but I also understand what our challenges. I have institutional knowledge of the destination and the RSCVA. My domestic international tourism experience in this industry allows me to recognize that this organization truly needs consistency, continuity, and stability in its next leader. In my opinion, this region is on the verge of being the next Austin, Texas, or Nashville, Tennessee. So what is the responsibility of this organization and its leader? The president and CEO of the RSCVA must leverage the ambitions of the board, staff, and industry stakeholders so that together we can produce greater value for our community. A healthy tourism economy benefits those who live, work, and play in Washoe County. The finalists were asked to present on the following topic. It is essential that today's destination leaders can identify emerging trends to effectively lead their organization. What are the top 3 transformational opportunities on the horizon and how would you utilize them for the RSCVA? As you can see on this slide, there are a plethora of emerging trends and transformational opportunities in the hospitality industry. Examples includes AI, artificial intelligence, community engagement, leisure travel, EDI, equity, diversity, inclusion, and corporate travel. We all recognize and appreciate the Reno Tahoe is a unique market. The national trends are not to this market. And therefore, I've decided to take a bit of a different approach in identifying the emerging trends and transformational opportunities. I chose to focus on emerging trends that are transformational opportunities that are relevant and applicable to the RSCVA and applicable to Reno Tahoe. Those three emerging trends are the importance of values, innovation and technology, and destination development. All right, there we go. The Harris poll states that 8 in 10 Americans agree that companies must have a track record of acting on their values to be taken seriously, and 74% of Americans agree it is important to me that the companies I buy from are clear about their values that they stand for. Prioritizing values is critical to an organization's success. A good leader is a result of a great team. Staff morale is critical to the success of this organization, and we must prioritize communication, recognition, and engagement. In the past 8.5 months, leadership at the RSCVA has united the teams at our 3 facilities with the staff at this main office. We have implemented an Employee of the Month program called Spotlight in November and running it all the way through. In fact, I presented the monthly award yesterday at the National Bowling Stadium for February. We've created a program to recognize employees for their tenure at the RSCVA, and we have retained key employees through this transition. In fact, we have added talent at both the National Bowling Stadium, the Reno Event Center, and hired a director of event development. We need, it's touchy. We need to increase our participation and visibility in community events, public engagement, and advocacy. And we must sustain charitable partnerships and give back opportunities at national trade shows and booth activations. We will continue to ensure all of our marketing collateral represents a diverse and inclusive audience. We need to really recognize and understand who our customer is. We must educate the community about the RSCVA through local speaking opportunities and engagements. We must have communication, responsiveness, and we need to get much better at sharing our wins with the local media. We will continue to hold monthly bowling days at the National Bowling Stadium. We will need to partner with the city of Sparks, Reno, and the region of North Lake Tahoe on their signature events, such as the Dragon Boat Race Festival in Sparks Arena, the Reno Pride Parade Festival in downtown Reno, and the North Lake Tahoe Drone Sky Show. And we must continue to be actively involved in sustainability efforts throughout our region, including the Lake Tahoe Stewardship Council, ongoing partnership with Leave No Trace, and the Tahoe Fund Tahoe Cares campaign. My second emerging trend focuses on innovation and technology. We need to be up to speed, knowledgeable, and identify opportunities to determine how to apply artificial intelligence to our marketing advertising strategies. We must be industry leaders in advanced innovative technologies and apply business intelligence and develop a data-driven plan for a more sustainable visitor economy. Intelligence is necessary to optimize organizational performance. Data is needed to drive decisions. We researched, identified, and contracted the top business intelligence firm in the travel industry and tourism economics. The data will impact our marketing, advertising, and organizational strategies. This information will be so granular, we will be able to provide investment results for our stakeholders, business owners, and the community as a whole. We must ensure our facilities are equipped with the latest technology. We need to purchase and install digital signage and continue to convert and install energy efficient lighting. We will renew our GBAC Global Bio-Risk Advisory Council accreditation. This accreditation supports and shows our commitment to health and wellness and a more sustainable, resilient world. Safety standards and training are a priority. The RSCVA has hired a safety manager, and all staff must participate in an OSHA General Industry Certified Training Program. My third and final emerging trend that I'm going to speak today is on destination development. We need to discover and pursue new opportunities to increase tourism in our region. Destination development will automatically occur when the demand for a destination increases, so it is vital to ensure it is strategically executed process. Quote Board Member Murdoch, "Our roads are full." To increase tourism in our region, we need to increase air service. With the board approved $3 million Air Service Development Fund, we are positioned to support minimum revenue guarantees, marketing support, and education and familiarization tours for airline executives. RTAA, EDON, and the RCVA are strategically aligned to target new routes, to increase lift from existing routes, and increased aircraft capacity. The strategic unified approach allows us to pursue air service development opportunities as a destination. We need to identify new revenue streams at our facilities, and we will definitely increase the number of familiarization trips moving forward, as we truly believe that seeing believing is believing. And when we get decision makers to our market, we win more than we lose. We need to identify new and unique opportunities like the indoor track that allows Reno Tahoe to have a distinct competitive advantage over our competition. We pursue new events and festivals with music, food and beverage, arts and culture as our anchor primary events in that area. We've embraced the local art community and will bring new art displays throughout the entire Reno Sparks Convention Center. And we will increase advertising sponsorship in our facilities for the first time ever. The RSCVA leadership team and staff are the foundation of a strong organization with diverse, strong strategic partnerships in place. Together, we are focused on staff morale, and we have established strong leadership that value transparency and open communication. A positive work culture has contributed to increased occupancy and revenues at our facilities. This has provided avenues for growth and funding for continued capital improvements. In closing, I'd like to leave you with this. I'm a third generation Nevadan. I was born and raised in Winnemucca, and I'm very proud of my Basque heritage. I'm a 1991 graduate of the University of Nevada, Reno. Our sons were raised here and both attend UNR. Our family bleeds blue. Everything about Northern Nevada is in my DNA. This job is not about my brand. This job is about elevating the Reno Tahoe brand. This job is not a springboard opportunity to the next job. It's about this job. This job is about where I live, where I'm from, and where I want to be. Thank you.
I'm going to open to questions about the presentation. We'll exhaust those questions and then we'll move on to general questions. So,
Good presentation. Thank you, Ms. Flanagan. Right now, as we speak, this exact moment, the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority is discussing our next phase and our next major project of $310 million ground transportation center. From that, we will start moving into the, to the new concourses and new headquarters, things like that. Our airport is changing. How do you see the role, and from your presentation, the role with RSCVA and RTAA taking to the next level?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. J. As you know, for the first time in the 7 years I've been an employee at the RSCVA, the leadership group of the RSCVA, the airport, and EDON are truly unified. And an example of that is in the next 30 days, we are traveling as a group to Atlanta for a headquarter visit with Delta Airlines. We have a new nonstop flight featuring a 757 aircraft, large capacity, starting in June. And we feel that us going as representatives of three major organizations in this community sends a very strong, positive message to the airline industry and the airline executive that we are unified. Unified from the standpoint of tourism, airline development, and economic development together. And we all have a common goal, and that is to drive tourism and drive visitation to our region.
Great, thank you very much.
Are there any questions on the presentation? Mr. East?
So Mike, I thought it was interesting that you led with values, among those three topics. How do you see our values having evolved in the time that you've been a part of the RSCVA? And can you talk a little bit about where you think our values were, where they are now, and where you think they're going?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question, Mr. Reese. So since I was elected to be the interim CEO in June, myself and the senior leadership team has really focused on breaking down the silos within this organization. We're a very unique makeup from the standpoint that we have 4 facilities that we own, manage, and oversee, and they're located throughout the entire city, being this building here, 2 downtown, and then of course Livestock Event Center. And we have designed programs to really engage, communicate, and recognize all the employees in this organization. As I mentioned in my presentation, we started an Employee of the Month program. We've never had that in the 7 years that I've been with this organization. We started a recognition from a tenure based on how long employees have worked here and recognize them for the 5, 10, 15, 20 years of service. We've ensured that if we have opportunities in any group that uses any of our facilities, we started pre-cons, basically for those of you that have not been in the hotel space, pre-cons are conventions that prior to the meetings, we meet with the group and the representatives from the groups, and we bring in all the employees that are impacted by that group, both from safety, security, engineering, sales, events, support, and we really focus on the customer. And we haven't done that in the past. And I shouldn't say we haven't done that in the past. We haven't done that in any of our facilities besides the convention center. So we really have tried to break down those silos. We've encouraged the senior staff to spend more time in our facilities, to engage those employees, and really show them that we value them and recognize them and appreciate them very much.
Sure.
Go right ahead.
Talk a little bit about the No Limits campaign. We talked about establishing a No Limits campaign, and I don't know if I'm familiar with that.
Yeah, so our agency of record is BBK, who's been with us for a while. And Christina and the marketing team launched this campaign this winter. And it really speaks to what our destination is all about, right? No limits, outdoors, fun, recreation, hip, cool, adventurous, vibrant. It basically speaks to what we aspire to be as a destination. And don't get me wrong, I truly believe that we also need to make sure that we know who our customers are. And that covers a very large spectrum in terms of age, race, demographic, all the above. But this campaign really focuses on who we aspire to be moving forward in the future.
Last question under INT. I think I saw something that said add offices in Mexico and Canada.
Correct. So there was actually a question yesterday in our stakeholder meeting from Chewy, who's here today, asking about how do we increase our recognition and brand internationally. Now, we are limited, obviously, as it relates to airlift that we have into the market. We only have the flight from Guadalajara with Volaris. But if for those of us that have been around in this market for a long time, we had significant service from Western Canada. Mr. Murdoch remembers the days of Canadian holidays and Silver Wing holidays and flying both nonstops and charters. And we are working very hard to expand. We feel that the opportunities that are available through WestJet or other Canadian air service operators and tour operators, Reno is a no-brainer, and we need to capitalize on that. So the first step was to start with a PR contract, both in Mexico and Western Canada, to really educate those in the travel space, both travel agents, receptor operators, tour operators, about what Reno Tel is all about.
Other questions on the presentation? Mr. Murdoch?
Mike, I'd like to ask you, this is just kind of an open question, but how do you measure RTAA success? How do you see when if you had this job, or how do you measure RTA success?
Well, I think the first thing is the collaboration effort between this organization, RTAA and EDON. Obviously, our biggest challenges, in my opinion, in this market is as it relates to increasing visitation, both on the FIT, obviously the gaming and the meetings and convention and sports side is airlift. Customers, it's proven data that customers do not like making stops. Customers do not like changing planes. So I think the first move that we have accomplished in the last 8.5 months is having this board approved the $3 million in the Air Service Development Fund. That puts us in a position when an airline is looking at a specific route and we're up against another city and they have the aircraft available. At the end of the day, the airlines practice revenue management and yield management better than anybody in the industry. They look at load factors and they look at yield. So they're going to put those airplanes where they can make the most money, obviously. But we need to make sure that we as a destination are in a position to where if that airlines, whether it's a legacy carrier or a secondary carrier, are looking at a specific market and they're looking at us versus say a Spokane or a Boise or a Long Beach, that we are in a position to be able to have a seat at the table. And that's both through relationship marketing and funding so that we are able to pull the trigger when needed to add that additional capacity.
I'm always been the heads and beds, butts and seat guy, that. Do you feel like that heads and beds is as important as butts and seats, which you got to drive traffic to now still.
If we don't have heads and beds and butts and seats, we don't have room tax and we don't exist. So 100%, that is the foundation of this organization. We are a tourism organization. We need visitation. We need occupancy. We need the right people in the right rooms, spending the right amount of money. That's what makes the cycle go round, 100%.
Do you feel like your role as RTAA, do you feel like besides the stakeholders, and you consider EDON a stakeholder, you consider the university, is that a priority for RTA to make sure that these stakeholders are all engaged and working?
Absolutely. I've had this conversation multiple times through the one-on-one interviews, the stakeholders, and even the senior staff, is that and I can't speak on behalf of RTAA or EDON, but we at the RSCVA need to do a better job of educating this community, educating the business leaders about who the RSCVA is, what we do, why we exist, and how we can help them. Communication is vital. We need to have a much stronger presence in the community, whether that is through charitable events, supporting dinners, golf events, whatever it may be. And we need to do a better job with the local media. I know that we provide a lot of our wins and information to the local media, but we need to make sure that that relationship is strong as ever so that people are telling our story on our behalf.
Other questions on the presentation? Mr. Long?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation, Mike. You ended with destination development, and I understand airlift is a factor. I understand conference space and the amount of rooms close to the conference space. How do you think safety for travelers and the perceived safety of a traveler impact the RCVA? Do you think that is our role at all to address that?
It absolutely is. And if you look at the data, safety is still the #1 priority and concern with meeting planners and decision makers. So through our facility team, we have definitely pivoted and done an amazing job ensuring that we are following all the safety standards and we are up to speed, hiring a safety manager. We're obviously GBAC certified at the convention center, which is the majority of where our conventions and sports groups occupy their space. And so it is absolutely a priority, not only safety, but also sustainability.
Other questions on the presentation?
Great question, by the way, because that gets overlooked a lot. And I didn't realize the magnitude of the safety component until we brought the conference mayors here. And that was like the #1 topic with our police department. And actually it was raised, I'm pretty sure it was Mike Loretta who raised that. And it was really expensive because it's now a time where people are feeling that they do not want to be in destinations that are not safe. So now more than ever, it's really important that tourism and public safety really meant. So I think that that's a great question, and it's very much overlooked when it comes to, sort of what we, I guess it's not something some people don't even want to talk about it, right? But I think, that was a fantastic question.
Thank you. Yeah, I think DMOs have to be more management organizations than marketing organizations moving forward.
Yeah.
Correct.
So I really appreciate that. I just want to know, I think Tina, you said that, you chose a topic for Mr. Larraget's presentation. Did you define what the topic was? Maybe I didn't hear it.
Yes.
What's it called?
It was based on emerging trends in the hospitality industry and what
What do
the,
you see as the 3 transformational opportunities and how would you use them for the RSCVA?
Okay, so, I want to ask you one thing. I've been the longest serving board member, I don't mean to brag. And I know to brag. I think I deserve a medal. But I stay committed because I have so much faith in what we do here and I love tourism and it's just, there's obviously, like any board, there are times it's, up and down, but so all I can say is obviously being the longest serving board member, I've watched over a decade now. The board and past CEOs do the same thing over and over and over again. And I've watched it over and over again, and usually, I'm sort of the odd man out. I have been for a very long time. I felt like, we really have stayed in a box that, has not been forward thinking. So how would you be any different?
great question, Madam Mayor, thank you. I think that, and we had this conversation, with one of the one-on-ones. And the question was really phrased to me was, why are you going to be different from other CEOs? And what led you to making the decision of pursuing this opportunity? And hopefully this response will answer your question as well, is that I really took a step back and I tried to define what were in my opinion, the qualities that were needed in order to lead this organization. And I think having someone who really understands the roots of this community, understands gaming, understands occupancy, understands segmentation, understands the challenges that we have as it relates to airlift and inventory adjacent to our facilities, understands that one property strategic plan may be completely different than a different property strategic plan. Having the ability to have an open dialogue with ownership and our major stakeholders, but also at the sales and marketing level, I think really is this communication, engagement, responsiveness, and making sure that that's on the property level and on the destination level. I think that being different from the other CEOs, it's very challenging for someone to come into this market. Yes, they may have fresh ideas from where they came from, regardless whether it's a DMO, CVB, or a Fortune 500 company. When you try and take a model and a plan that works somewhere else and put it into this market, it's a bit of a square peg in a round hole. It's a challenge. You really need to understand how this region works. I've lived it, I've breathed it. I know exactly what the challenges are. I know what the opportunities are, and I know how we can tackle those moving forward, how we can be better, what we need, what does downtown need, what does South Reno need, what does Sparks need, all the above. So I think it's more about institutional knowledge of the destination.
And then one of the other things I would just like to point out, I do think that it's helpful in this capacity, because I have watched the team and the people who put a lot of hard work and make this place successful, do a phenomenal job, and quite honestly, not really be heard. And I watched that for a very, very long time. And I really want to recognize your team, because they're truly what has made it successful. So when we went out there and all of us bragged about the accolades that we received, and our last CEO, put up these big splashy things, it really came from your team. So you should know that I think I'm so fortunate. But I felt for a long time that they have not been recognized, and so I also feel like you probably know a little bit about how that feels.
I appreciate the comments, Madam Mayor, and I agree. I think we have an incredibly talented team throughout this entire organization, starting at the VP level, all the way down to the frontline employees. people love what they do in this organization. People love working for Reno Tahoe. People love representing our region. They want to be here. It's a great organization. It's a great opportunity for them to grow and learn. And I appreciate the recognition. And to your point, we need to get more in front of that and make sure that we are recognizing and acknowledging the staff.
Right, so just in the whole broad scheme of everything, just, how do you make sure that they are heard?
I think it starts with making sure that we are engaged as much as possible, right? We need to make sure, and they're probably going to kill me for saying this, but we need to be more out in the community. We need to participate in events. We need to be in meetings. We need to meet, one of the things we talked about in the stakeholder meeting was, and we had representatives from multiple entities throughout the city, is that I made a commitment to them that we as an organization want to hold quarterly meetings with them, just to have an open discussion, to be able to talk about what we're doing as an organization from a sales and marketing perspective, how we are trending, what we are seeing in terms of room tax and forecasting, and how we're looking on the future moving forward, but also to hear what are their needs and wants, what is important to them, how do we help you and how do you help us? And those are some of the barriers that we want to break down moving forward, is really having open dialogue and communication with our business owners and our stakeholders and the people that are representing the community. Because the RSCVA is the engine and we really are the head of this train and we need to drive that. And so we, and Chuy was in that meeting, and I can tell you it was incredibly well received to be able to have the RSCVA, whether it's from a marketing standpoint, a sales standpoint, or us talking about room tax and production and what we're forecasting. We need to be an open book and communicate.
I really appreciate that, because the sentiment has always been the RSCVA's doors have really been closed to the community and to our businesses. And I'm hearing a much different story, especially with the bowling stadium, from a lot of the nonprofits I work with, but also businesses in the community. You can see a Chewy over there, and if you're not eating at Chewy's restaurant, then you don't know what you're missing, right?
Thank you,
So
Mayor.
that says a lot, and it says that people in our community are recognizing this, and especially our businesses, because they matter. Why? Because tourists love to frequent our businesses, especially Chewy's in Midtown and in Ranchera. So I actually met a couple of tourists there last time I was there, and we had a few drinks together. So thank you very much, but I just want to say I'm finally now hearing a change of what the community perceives as the RSCVA.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And along those lines, one comment that I failed to mention was the other item that we discussed with the stakeholders was, we have been in the past reluctant to share information as it relates to the major conventions that are coming to our destination. And the example I gave was, we have the Shriners coming June 30th through July 4th, 10,000 attendees. They're predominantly being booked or staying at the Row downtown. They're doing a concert at the REC. As we get closer to their arrival dates, we should be sharing that information with our entire community. Because you look at someone like Chewy, who's a business owner in this community, those numbers may change his hours of operation, his labor, his staffing, it might even, based on the demographic, change his menu for the time that they are in. And they should have the opportunity to have that information so they can go out and market to those attendees in advance. It's a win-win for everyone, and we need to do a better job of that.
I'm going to go to Commissioner Hill, who is on Zoom. Morning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is it time to ask questions beyond the presentation?
We're on the presentation still, but we're getting close. Do you have anything on the presentation?
Oh, I also want to commend you for addressing staffing, because that's what a leader does in an organization. And instead of just talking about the numbers, but also talking about how we can articulate our story to the community. I commend you for that. But I also have a question, but I will wait until we're done with presentation questions.
Okay, I will come to you first then. Other presentation, Mr. Twaga.
No, sure. Thank you, Mike. Actually, could you just spend a little time, and it's touched on what Mr. East was on, and in general on, what does our customer look like in your eyes going forward? And tied to that, what are the segments of opportunity? You've been in the number 2 spot. You've had a lot of institutional knowledge both the market, the organization, but where do you see the opportunities coming forward with it?
Thank you, Mr. Squaga. It's a great question. So I can tell you when I first joined this organization, the majority of our marketing and the individuals that we were showcasing in our marketing, in our advertising, in our print ads, in our social media, really focused on that young, hip, excuse me, cool Lake Tahoe paddleboard. That was the look, right? And I really pushed back with Christina and her team, especially for the meetings and convention and sports side, because that's not who our customer is. And we heard it firsthand from meeting planners and decision makers when they were coming and they were looking at citing our destination. They were like, you have beautiful collateral. You have beautiful messaging. Your pictures are amazing. That's not my attendee in that picture. And so we have pivoted. And if you look at and working with Christina and the team and BBK, if you look at our specifically as it relates to sales, if you look at our sports advertising and marketing, and you look at the meetings and convention marketing, we focus on diversity, we focus on age, we focus on really understanding and recognizing who our customer is within that segment. So I think to end my answer, we have definitely moved forward of making sure that by segmentation, we're identifying the right people based on the attendees and who they are for that segment. Hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. And again, it's a kind of open-ended, just, what does that customer look like going forward? It's,
Great question. Having been in this market for a long time, having been in the hotel, hospitality, and gaming space for a long time, as you know, that customer look changes. And it really changes based on what is the strategic plan of those individual properties. Some properties are very pro youth sports and want that business. Some properties, they won't even look at a piece of business if the attendee isn't 21 or over. So I think that we as an organization, as the tourism sales and marketing arm representing this region, is that we have to listen to our properties and communicate with them to really get their feedback and understanding who they feel our customer is, because that's really going to drive it. Now we have data and we have visitor profiles and we look at all of that, of course, right? And now we have tourism economics. But as you know, we have to get in line with who our properties say is their customer, and we should be marketing accordingly. Now, it's not going to be unified because one property's customer is different than the other. So it's a challenge. It's difficult. I mean, we would all love, in the gaming world now, we have a third of our inventory and a third of our room tax is obviously in the select service properties. Very, very important. Very high rates, high occupancy. But we also know that if our casino operators had their way, every single room, every single night would be filled with a comp customer based on our gaming profile. Gaming is the foundation of what made the state it is today. So we can't divert away from that. And we need to make sure that we understand that. But we also need to make sure that we're marketing to all segmentation.
I appreciate it. Again, I mean, I think Stephen's earning too here. I think it's such a different day. And I think between the ability of social media, I think your tourism economics can be interesting to kind of overlay to that. You're right. Each property, we all have our own strategies. But I think it's, and on the other side, I think our offering, we speak to a lot of different people. So
We do.
anyway, that's my, all I have.
Thank you.
I'm going to kind of segue of what Mr. Squaga just talked about. Because really looking at emerging trends, what do you see? And we don't have a crystal ball, none of us can really predict, and now 5 years from now. But with your experience here, and especially having gone through COVID, where we really, the world was upended literally, and the destination and state and airlines, all of that was impacted so heavily. And then we've come back really strong so that, that COVID black hole that took place for a year or two, kind of changed a lot of things. So really, as far as emerging trends, not only what does the visitor, our visitors look like, but what have you seen and how are we adjusting and capitalizing on the trends that are changing of who comes here and how long they stay and what conventions we get? Do you see, especially post-COVID, I guess, what direction we're going in and kind of where we want to move forward or what you would want us to move forward in as opportunities for us.
Sure. So, our region was extremely fortunate, going through the pandemic, from a standpoint of looking at our performance and room tax. Courtney can correct me if wrong, but I think we had 7 record months out of the last year, something along that line. Obviously, September was the highest producing room tax month in the history of this organization since we've been tracking that data. So we performed extremely well. Now, I think a lot of that had to do with outdoor space, the ease of getting to Lake Tahoe, predominantly a drive market from Northern California, and obviously the Valley. Moving forward, again, I think it is very, very important for us to be engaged in communicating with our property owners. Our major stakeholders, our select service properties, they very similar to our airlines. They have tremendous data. They have the best data in the world. They know who they're marketing to. They know who their customers are. And we need to fall in line with that and to ensure that we're marketing in the right areas to the right customer. Now, we obviously aspire to have our market evolve into bringing younger, more affluent pre-stays, post-stays based on conventions. We want all of that, right? But I think it's more about just making sure that we are in a position to pivot in a very short period of time based on what's happening in the world, based on what's happening in from a political standpoint, what's happening from an economic standpoint. I mean, I can tell you that in our preliminary meetings, and we've had budget meetings, one-on-one budget meetings with every board member, based on what they felt was important in our budget, what was they were foreseeing within their individual properties if they represent a property. And we are being, I don't want to say we're being overly conservative, but we are coming in a little bit lower than forecasting as we sit today to the 23-24 fiscal year budget.
Other presentation questions? If not, I'm not seeing any. We'll go ahead and move on to general questions. And Commissioner Hill, I'm going to start with you. Commissioner Hill, are you there? Did we lose your mic? Huh?
Maybe can we text her and maybe come back to her?
She's doing that right now.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Richard, I'll let Richard start and then we'll go to Commissioner.
The mayor's leaving right now, but real quick, she knows that for the last, how many years have I been advocating for Blackfields?
Since I was born.
Just about. So we've never, on a different hat, we've never had the ability to host large tournaments, soccer, lacrosse in our region because we don't have the facilities. We're on the verge now with Pembroke and Mill Street of creating 2 venues that could have up to 25 fields. Coming from Vegas, where they're very successful there, how do you see the RSCVA in assisting in getting those tournaments that have upwards of 70% of out-of-towners coming into our community?
Yeah, so thank you for the question, Mr. J. Obviously, we are huge advocates of the sports segment. Shelley Fine and her team do an unbelievable job in terms of the amount of rooms that they contract on an annual basis. That team will produce between 100 and 130,000 rooms per year in contracted sports business. That being said, if we had the availability from an inventory standpoint where the hotels were willing to provide us additional contracted rooms, that some of the challenges with the sports segment is during the times of the year overlaps into our peak season, right? So as to your point about flat fields, we want to focus on sports that meet in obviously the shoulder seasons where we have a higher probability of getting our stakeholders and the select service properties to give us contracted rooms. If we had an opportunity to contract every single lead that we received from youth sports and youth, we would do 250,000 room nights a year easily. So it really comes down to ensuring that our properties want to contract that business, will contract that business, because there's no short of demand. Now, we are lacking on the facility side, absolutely. But once we move forward, and I'm very confident that you will move that forward and getting us additional flat fields, which obviously we are extremely excited about. It's just a matter of us going out and making sure we are knocking on the doors of all of our stakeholders and select service properties, that they want that business and they will contract that business.
Thank you very much.
Other general questions, Mr. Murdoch?
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. Is the usage in our facilities, has it been important that we've opened up to the high schools and the junior highs and the nonprofits? During, we come in and help during, whether it was a fire and it's too smoky and teams couldn't practice, cheer teams couldn't practice. So is that very important to the RSCVA to maintain that?
So thanks for the question, Mr. Murdoch. So I'm going to give two answers. One, since we took the facilities back in-house of June of 22, and we created the facility sales and events team, Renee McGinnis and her team have done a fabulous job of booking business, not only servicing business and booking business, and in addition to our sales and sports team for conventions that obviously have room nights attached to them, but they are booking a tremendous amount of events and business that is non-room affiliated, and they can book on a calendar within 365 days and in. We have taken our occupancy in all our facilities and we've increased them significantly. I think when I started here, occupancy at the convention center was running in between 28 and 31%. I think our last number, and Renee, I think we're north of 50% now in our occupancy in the RSCC. So I think that is the first answer to the question, is that we have focused on that and we have found success. And it's not a matter of stealing market share from our stakeholders. We're really finding new business that needs a home and is looking for meeting space and an opportunity to host their meetings because there's insufficient space outside of the hotels. The second part of your question that I'll answer is we absolutely need to be a community partner, right? We passed a youth sports policy a couple of years ago, and it allows us as an organization to provide space on a complimentary basis for those youth sports, or whenever there is a disaster, whether it's smoke or it's weather or we have floods, we will open up our facilities, whether it's Little League baseball or it's soccer or whatever it may be. Now, we are looking at the chair's request, putting some money into the budget to offset some of the nominal costs that come with operating our facilities when we host those. But I think back to the point is it's very important. And again, I think that's that part of that community message and being a community partner.
Other general questions, Mr. East?
Yeah, I have one. So you talked about the individual diversity of the properties a couple of times in answering questions. Talk a little bit about your consensus building skills, and just let me preempt you that, if you say, hey, it's communication, I want you to go a little bit deeper than that for me with actual information about how you would communicate, but talk about how among this diverse group of, not just among this board, but among the people in the community, how do you build consensus effectively?
So I think it's reaching out, right? Meeting. I mean, I can tell you on the sales side, I consistently over the past 7 years will meet with the sales leaders, and your property that you represent is a great example. The prior ownership in the brand that it was prior to becoming the J Resort was really not an active participant in a lot of the activities and the sales missions and the programs that we participated in. That has changed 360 degrees. We are reaching out to your property and your sales leaders on every opportunity, whether that's a sales mission, whether that is hosting rooms for a block, whether that's a FAM, whether that's airline executives coming in, because you're the new shiny penny in town and we want to showcase it. It's a win-win for both of us. So it's really about us communicating with the sales leaders, communicating with management, making sure that our clients are seeing the new property, seeing the existing properties, seeing the renovations, seeing the progress that we're having in our city, not only from a hotel standpoint, but also the development that we have, whether that be downtown, South Arena, or in Sparks. We need to make sure that our staff is educated on everything that is happening within Washoe County or at the lake or whatever it may be, and make sure that we are showing our customers and educating them about what's happening in our community.
Other general questions? I'm gonna go ahead and throw it out. And moving forward, you get this position today. Tell me what your top priority is and where you see, do you envision major changes, some changes, no changes, and then kind of where you would hope to see yourself maybe a year from now?
Sure.
And how your goals, as well as aligned with our strategic plan, kind of what your goals are and how you plan on getting there.
So I would say that, there's a long list of things that I've thought about, right? And have I prioritized them per se? Not so much. But, I've had this question asked, the last few days through the one-on-ones and the stakeholder meetings. I really tie my priorities back to the emerging trends that I identified in my presentation. We need to really focus on values and staff and morale. We need to focus on innovation and technology, and we need to focus on destination development. Those are the three priorities. As it relates to change, I think when there's any change in leadership and new leadership, you need to assess. Obviously, you need to make sure that you have the right people in the right positions, the right skill set. There is no plan. There is no Mike Larragetta, if he is fortunate enough to be offered this position, is going to walk in and make significant changes. I've been here 7 years. I know the talent that we have in this organization, and we've been thriving and performing at a very high level. There is no plan to walk in and start moving things around. We have had through our budgeting process, each department head has the opportunity to submit their wants and needs, whether that's from a staffing standpoint, whether that's from a budget standpoint, reallocating funds within their existing budget. I'm a player's coach. I want buy-in from the department heads. I want buy-in from the directors. And so that we are all unified so that when we meet with the board and we present the budget, we're presenting from a unified perspective. We're not presenting from my perspective.
Did we get Commissioner Hill back on? Okay. I think I've lost her. Sir Scott?
Just real quick to build on, and Mike, you brought up the players coach and that's one direction, right, of requests and needs and communication. As far as externally, this organization, especially if we're doing well and through taxes rolling, you have requests coming from all angles, from all different interests, nonprofits, fellow board members, all coming with different levels of requests to you. How do you get your head or hands around the CEO of taking those requests and really kind of creating a system in how we'll approach each one?
So I think if requests from nonprofits, obviously we have an existing structure in place that speaks to that, especially as it relates to renting our facilities, right? We have a nonprofit rate. We have a discounted rate if they book within 90 days. So we've addressed that. If there's additional request for funding, we've done some partnerships through the National Bowling Days where we partner with a charity, we rotate that. It's very difficult to be everything to everyone, right? There's a plethora of charities out there, but we're trying to touch everybody in some capacity. We don't have an unlimited piggy bank of funds available for everyone, but we want to be a good community partner. As it relates to requests that come from the board, there again, I think that touches again on communication, engagement, ensuring that we know what your requests are. And when we went and we had the one-on-one, Courtney and I had the one-on-one budget meetings with everybody, we heard some of those requests and we identified them and we shared them with other board members. And I think there again, it's making sure that we as a leadership team know what those requests are, what those requests are defined as. We share that with the rest of the board through our pre-boards so that when we sit down on the third Thursday of every month and we have a meeting, that there's not this request that came out of nowhere that no one knows what it is or why it's coming or what the purpose is. My opinion is that if we are asked for a comment and feedback as it relates to a request, we're happy to give it. We're happy to share our thoughts and our feedback. But if we're not, I think that's really a discussion that needs to happen within the board and let you all working out as a board and determining what's important to you. Personally, my priority is if it has some way to impact tourism, to better tourism from a safety standpoint, from a tourism standpoint, room night production standpoint, that's what's relevant to me. If it doesn't touch tourism and it's really not defined that way, I don't know if I would be one in line to say that we should be writing a check for that.
I think you have more questions. Okay. So I guess give you an opportunity, Mike, if you had things we haven't asked you, things you want to make sure the board knows. Obviously, we all know you, but anything you want to add to your presentation, questions and answers you've already answered that you want to leave us with?
Did I hear Commissioner Hill come back on? I thought I heard. Sorry.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, then it's a go. Commissioner Hill.
Well, I don't know if this question was asked because I lost Wi-Fi, but I am back on. I really appreciate the discussion of using data and really understanding our visitors better, but I'm curious if we have thought about revenue streams beyond room tax for RSCVA, and you don't have to get into specifics because obviously that's a board, decision and discussion, but just, hearing your thoughts about, with the understanding that we're probably looking at a soft tourist season coming up here and what that leadership will provide. And then I have a second question, hopefully I don't drop off, but how do you plan on providing some support and board cohesion, as well as supporting the board on giving recommendation on RSCVA goals?
So, thank you, Commissioner Hill. So I think there was a few questions in there. First of all, as it relates to revenue streams internally, obviously we have identified some opportunities as it relates to generating revenues within our facilities. The sales and events team is obviously driving rent, upsales to existing groups or new groups or non-related groups that are generating revenues. So that is a revenue stream that we've not had in the past since June of 2022. Externally, board member Abasar has been extremely passionate and open and driven to exploring opportunities as it relates to creating other revenue streams. And we really want to move forward and identify that. And we've had several discussions on that topic. I feel that there's definitely legs there and there's an opportunity. I don't want to get into all the details. That's for another time. But we absolutely, to your point, and hear you loud and clear, we need to make sure that we are looking at every opportunity as it relates to generating other revenue streams, because you can't just rest on your laurels and assume that we're always going to perform at a high level and then our room tax will be as high as it's been the last 12 months, right? We need to ensure that we're exploring all options and all opportunities. And I'm sorry, what was your last question? I apologize.
The last question was just, how do you think your leadership will provide board cohesion, and how do you think you can support board goals and positive board discussions?
Yeah, again, I think, and I don't know, this may have, when you dropped off, but I think it comes down to doing everything we can to manage the board's expectations, right? And it comes down to communication, engagement, responsiveness. We need to make sure that myself and the leadership team are engaged with the board as much as possible, whether that is in the facility, outside the facility. Communication is key. And we want to know what your priorities are as a board member, and hopefully they unify with other board members, and so that we are all rowing in the same direction and the rising tide floats all boats.
Thank you. And I think you've done a really good job of working with board members to find out what they want to see the RSCVA do in your tenure as interim. And so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
So no other, did anyone else have a question? Or I'm gonna go back to what closing comments or things that we didn't touch on or you'd want to leave us with?
Closing comments. I mean, I think through this process of the one-on-one interviews, the stakeholder interviews, the conversation and communication, the questions that were asked today, I feel very confident that we have addressed the majority of all topics and all issues and all concerns and all opportunities. My closing comments is that it would be truly my honor to represent this organization. Like I said in my presentation, this is my home. These are my roots. This is where I want to be. And this is where I want to be the rest of my life, and my family as well. We've got a great team. This organization, this city is going in a very good direction. And it's time to get on the train because we're going somewhere special. So I appreciate the board's support, and thank you for the opportunity today.
We'll take a 5-minute break for everybody who needs to grab coffee. And then Mr. Longetta will be leaving and I'll move into deliberations. So let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break for everyone. And then we'll be back. Readjourn. You have audio on? Feedback.
Maybe the microphone. Yes.
Okay. Okay. What we're going to do first is I'm going to have Tina and Dennis from Winter Partners provide the feedback that they have collected, both, actually it was all yesterday from the stakeholder meeting, and they had the opportunity to give feedback during that session, and then also from staff. So they met with staff as a group, and then they had short one-on-ones with staff, and are going to give us some feedback before we move forward. So Tina.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Board of Directors. Tina Winter, Winter Partners. As we lined up in our process, when we would come back and candidates would have an opportunity to meet with stakeholders and staff, and we would collect feedback from those sessions. With the stakeholder sessions, we had 11 people that came in from the community to participate, and they were given a feedback form. We asked for impressions, any concerns, and if their recommendation was for the board to move forward with the candidate. So based on the 11 participants, we had recommend for further consideration. Everyone was a yes. There was one non-answer that wasn't marked either way. So we wanted to share some of the impressions that were shared about Mike for consideration as you think about his candidacy. Great answers and plans for the future for the community and small business, great leadership skills and listening skills, excited and optimistic about the direction Mike will lead the RSCVA with a focus on small business and local business to enhance tourism. The right leader for the job, look forward to working with him, strong international and domestic experience, built a strong team and positive culture, understands the importance of supporting local business, which is new for the RSCVA. It will increase the ability to secure external business. He will provide a smooth transition, proven leader, already established a strong success story under difficult circumstances, relatable, engaged, strongly versed in Northern Nevada, recognizes RSCVA's shortcomings and is ready to face them. Knowledgeable, collaborative, and innovative, listened as much as he spoke, great suggestions to improve the image of Reno, dedicated, ready, determined, let's go. So those were the impressions that we collected. Concerns, his ability to excel is tied to the board's support. Please show him that you have his back so he can succeed. And the only other concern, worried about employee relations. That was stakeholder feedback. For the staff, we did have an opportunity to meet with them all individually. They collectively have provided a statement with their feedback on Mike as the candidate. So I'd like to share that with you. At the beginning of the president and CEO search process, RSCVA senior staff members were asked to give input on attributes critical to performing the organization's top role. Staff recommended a number of qualities, most notably including experience related specifically to tourism, meetings and convention sales, travel trade, marketing, facilities management, air service development, community engagement, budget management, and personnel management. It is understood that direct experience is difficult to replicate. Mr. Larragueta has been consistent and effective leadership figure at this organization for more than 7 years. Staff members have worked directly with Mr. Larragueta on countless projects and have direct knowledge of his decision-making process in good times and also in times of crisis. After giving thoughtful consideration to the qualitative categories outlined by Winter Partners, organizational leadership, financial management, operations management, strategic direction, advocacy, board relations, community and stakeholder relationships, and industry experience. Senior staff respectfully recommends Mike Larraguetta to be the next president and CEO of the Reno Sparks Convention and Visitors Authority. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. And I appreciate that. I think that's really important that we have the input, which is why we've been working with Tina, bringing stakeholders in. And, you know, reminder too, that we did that in the fall with Tina and Dennis to ask in the beginning, what are we looking for before we even had candidates? So I think that's been really helpful in getting in and then having voices heard, you know, and to your point, Madam Mayor, really with staff too, making sure staff was heard, you know, that their senior leadership and staff had input at the beginning of this and then at as we come here to the end. So I think their voices absolutely have been part of this process. And I don't know in the past, because I wasn't here for past selections, if it was, we had that or not. And I think that's important, both for stakeholders and for senior staff to be part of this process and for us to hear their voices, even though we're the ones, you know, who are tasked with making this decision today. So thank you, Tina. Anything else, Tina or Dennis, you want to add to our, before I open it up to any board discussion?
We'll let you move forward.
Okay, thank you so much. And thank you. Thank you for the amount of time and effort you put into this. It's been a lot of work, but thank you. We're here.
Our pleasure.
I do want to acknowledge both of you because, you know, I've done a lot of these searches and I really thought that you guys were very thoughtful and especially, you know, we took some time on a few phone calls. I really, really appreciate that. I think that it made a difference, sort of, I don't know, it's just a little bit more personable I liked, and you guys asked a lot of questions that I haven't heard before. It almost seems like you sort of have this specialty boutique that you guys do, and I think it's a nice niche. So I want to commend you because I really do think you did a pretty good job. Not to mention, I think it's tough circumstances where this board is known for not being that easy, and the organization. So I really do want to commend both of you. Thank you so much. I think you did a really good job.
Appreciate that feedback.
so much.
Thank you. Okay, I'm opening the floor. Oh, sorry, my attorney's over here looking at me. So where we are right now is we're looking to take possible action to select our next CEO. And I'm open to discussion and or a motion. Mr. J.
Move that the RCVA extends an offer to Mike Larraguetta to become the CEO.
I have a motion and I have a second, Madam Mayor. Second, okay. Motion second, open to discussion.
So just for clarification, and maybe it's more Molly and Ben, so we approve it. What is it? Where do we then go to a subcommittee group and negotiate? How does
I'll
that?
have a second. I'll have another motion I'm gonna ask for.
Okay,
So the motion right now, which is our first motion, is offering the position to Mr. Larraguetta, which I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Mr. Abelsar.
I just wanted to add that this process has been bumpy and we have a candidate. We have one of three candidates. I have viewed Mr. Larraguetta as one of three the entire time. This is a human business. I want to extend apologies and appreciation to Winners Partners because they deal with humans and humans are difficult and unpredictable. And from my perspective, we evaluated three individuals on their merit, on their history, on their ability to transform this region independently. And we have that ability to review three people. If two of those individuals perhaps don't want us to look at and evaluate them, that's not our responsibility. And so I think it's important recognizing that in the motion, we're evaluating an individual on their merits, on their ability to bring forth value, leadership, guidance to this region and in this office. And it has nothing to do with whether or not it's a comparative analysis. It's an analysis on that individual. That's how I and the Reno Sparks Chamber of Commerce evaluate Mr. Larragetta in this motion. I think that's important. I think it's an important narrative, perhaps to our staff that communicates it to the public. Because the last thing that I think we as an organization need, and the last thing that we and our staff and our leadership need, is any inference to the idea that that this was a selection by default, because I think that is an insult to us. It's an insult to the process, to the work that Winners Partners did, and an insult to the leadership and the staff of this organization. So I know we're not voting yet, but in terms of discussion, I really wanted to get that on record from the Reno Sparks Chamber of Commerce, that you're evaluating him in his individual offering to us. And the vote that we're having has nothing to do with anyone else, but him and him alone in his standing and attributes and resume. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Spencer. Any other comments?
No, but I appreciate Eddie's comments very much. I think that is, it's very important.
I would agree. Yeah, I appreciate, given the context, the elephant in the room for us. I think putting that into context, I think was important. So I agree. I have motion.
Yeah.
I have a
I
second.
called out the elephant in the room. Thank you. There you go. That's usually my saying. She just stole it from me, but that's anyway.
Sorry.
Yeah.
All right.
So motion to second, is that what we said?
I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is Alexis still here or no?
She was.
I,
Thank you, Commissioner. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. I am going to be asking for a second motion. Since we've selected Mr. Larragetta, our next action is to take action to delegate responsibilities for the negotiation of an employment agreement with Mr. Larragetta. And so we need to select one of the members of the board to negotiate that contract. Do you want to weigh in, or you weigh in why this won't go?
The last time we did this, I remember I was the chair? Yeah,
Chair.
I was the chair. I know that we had Cornstein ended up doing it. Was there a reason? Was it just by default the chair?
So it previously it had always been the chair, but you had your brother, it was that time frame. And
So
so
Charlene, then I assume?
I think that would be fine. Charlene would work with us. We'll go to Mike, sort of hash out all the details in a form contract, and then that would come back to the board at our next meeting for board approval.
Yeah, but it is open for us to decide on a candidate. I can do it, but if the board decides they want someone else to, we can't go to the executive, any subcommittee. Explain why we would not. Normally we do things through
Then
executive.
why don't we, I would propose that we do the chair and vice chair.
So the issue with multiple is we don't want to create a committee, because then it would be an open meeting law committee. It would be negotiating and bringing something back to the board. And then those conversations with Mr. Larragetta, negotiating pay, any other terms, would be open meetings. And so the idea is one board member can sit down with Mike.
That's
And-
fine, but I think after she does that, if there's any, at any point, you think that maybe you need a little bit of, a little
Point of
different
order.
perspective and opinion.
Well, can I just
That
give
might
some
be-
information
She'll
that
jump
might
in
help
and kind of
the
guide
board?
where she's going.
When we started this search back in September in the fall, the board did make a decision regarding salary range and other specific terms. And we can have a discussion if there are any terms that you would like to make sure, like, discuss as well. And the contract will absolutely come back before the full board for discussion and approval.
Yeah.
And any change. But
Always
that, Yeah, exactly. So that motion that was approved previously was to approve the salary range of 280,000 to 320,000 with a bonus potential of 10% based on specific actionable goals, with a potential of an additional 5% based on board discretion. So it would be anybody, whoever is chosen to negotiate it, would be negotiating it with those base terms.
In the terms,
In the terms themselves.
okay.
But it would come back to the board and we would hope that we could do this and be back here in 2 weeks for our normal board meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be ideal and we'd
Let's
have a
do that.
contract in 2
It was
weeks.
pretty quick then when we did it.
It shouldn't take long. I'm confident we should be back here in
Yeah,
2 weeks with
okay.
the contract.
So then I would be comfortable with having the chair do it.
Yeah.
And then we will all be able to weigh in and take a look at it in 2 weeks.
Okay,
Okay.
I've got 2 board members, Mr. Murdoch and then Mr. Avasar.
I just want to make sure that just because we have this term set, that they get re-looked at. I want to know, I want to look at all the structure of it. Do you know what I mean? How's that going to be done fairly? And Charlene does it and then it comes back to the board and then we're going to have input as whether we want to fix it or change it. Is that what I'm hearing here?
Well, you can definitely, if you have ideas today, you are agendized to be able to discuss terms to be offered, which may be offered. So this, I'm just letting you know what was approved previously as what the salary range and bonus potential would be. But the board is not necessarily, does not have to be specifically tied to that. I would never advise, because this was what was represented to candidates when they accepted to go forward with this process. I would never advise ever going below, but if you went.
Can I also just, I had this conversation when I interviewed Mr. Larragetta. I was concerned, honestly, I would have never voted for that last contract. I thought it was outrageous. I thought that the goals were as part of your job description would be. I really felt like that needs to be looked at. So I was kind of hammered Mr. Larragetta on it, and he already had something proposed where I actually thought it was much more fair and equitable and actually rewarded his team. And so I.
Oh, he's part of the negotiation, so anything he has, we can definitely.
Right, so I think Bali, it sounds like he will be able to do that, because I just said, if you get the job, I felt like when it came to negotiations, it was something I was never comfortable with. And it was pretty rich. So, and then COLAs came in, and I think that happened because then if you give everyone else COLAs, then they might not say about these COLAs, right? So it needs to be looked at, just to be really honest, with the other elephant in the room.
Did you want to finish?
Yeah, I just want to finish my thought there, and I just remember, I'm not picking on Stephen. Stephen and I had questions because we felt some of that structure of that contract was out of whack. Especially the scoring and the bonus program. I mean, I think it was crazy. I'm hoping we get in and get some reality, but I think, I think we're leaning that way and really make it a contract that's fair for both sides. And also, number one is it makes people accountable. And your CEO, and they're measurable. They're not percentages. And I mean, that was just a mess for me. And I really think, I hope we can, as a group, get there and get better at that.
Okay, Ms. Travis.
Thank you.
So, thank you, Madam Chair. So, Mr. Kennedy, my concern is sort of like, the standard that we're setting around committee, and going back to what's going to happen outside of all this. It's my understanding committees make decisions, and that decision technically is voted on by the committee, and those committees then bring that decision to the body of the whole, and we make a decision. It's sort of a delegation of authority. And so the reason I'm pushing on this is because I could see if we draw a line here, it's going to infringe upon how we do many things in the future when Mr. Long and I want to have a conversation about, what happened about up at the lake. Park Connect. And Park Connect. And if we meet on Park Connect and we are working on a concept we are not violating quorum. We are not violating open meeting laws in any way. And we're not a committee. We're not making a decision, but we are working collaboratively. And so my concern about this is one, when Chair and I have spoken about this, like I would love to see the chair working, in more collaboration rather than it all being on her shoulders. I think that we have a vice chair and a chair for a reason, or if there's someone else that wants to engage, I don't see a violation of the law in any way of having the ability for a non-quorum, non-committee to sit and hear about the terms, and then you as staff bring those terms to us as a body of a whole to vote on.
So you're correct. If you and Mr. Long want to meet and talk about anything, board members are always free to have discussions and to talk. That's not a committee. The open meeting law is clear that if the board empowers more than one person, so multiple people, to go investigate or go have discussions and bring a recommendation back to the board, then that is an open meeting law committee. That's not my rule, that's the statute. The statute's clear, the AG open meeting law manual is clear, that if the board empowers multiple people to go do something and then report back to the board and make a recommendation to that board, that is an open meeting law committee.
I think what you're saying is to establish a committee, then it has to fall under that parameter.
Correct.
So what you're saying is if we wanted to do that, then we could say, we would like to form a committee. And then you could have like 4 people on.
Right, you could have a committee, but
You
then
just
those,
have to follow the guidelines.
yes.
And you have to be-
If you empower the chair to have the discussions with Mr. Larragetta and we come across issues where there's maybe some indecision or negotiation, the chair is always free to reach out to less than a quorum of the board member to bounce ideas off the board, right? But if we say the chair and the vice chair are empowered to go negotiate this contract and then bring a contract back to the board for approval, the chair and the vice chair are a committee now and will be subject to it.
One of the things I would request is that any negotiation that Molly or Ben are absolutely in, that there should be no conversation unless our attorneys are in the room when it comes to negotiating.
And I'll say too, to Mr. Murdoch's point, if, we understand the issues with the previous contract. We've heard that and we'll address those in this next contract. If any board member has any particular issue or concern, always free to reach out to Molly and I and discuss it, and we'll make sure it gets addressed and incorporated.
And I appreciate that you both have been super accessible. I mean, always responsive. So thank you.
Mr. Scott.
No, great. I was actually gonna follow a little bit in Eddie's foot tracks. I'm not real seasoned in open meeting law, so I will defer. But I thought the same. I was unaware that, I thought it was under a certain number of members. It wasn't necessarily defined under the committee, but that's clear. I do hope, Madam Chair, that again, I think we should have, it's gonna mean picking up the phone again, like you do, having to babysit all the 8 others of filling us in. I feel good with the parameters. I know we established this back, I don't know, September. To echo the mayor's comments and Mr. Murdoch's, I think there was I don't want to be going forward every time we're reviewing for, salary increase and that it's heartburn and we're all upset. I do know that these positions are worth a certain value and they're well compensated. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of decisions. You are affecting a lot of people in the food chain, from the properties, our flagship properties, or I don't know what we call them, the courtyard Marriotts, and there's a machine in place that this person is responsible for. I think some of the things the mayor brought up it's probably outside of necessarily Mike's initial negotiation, but it does have a cascading effect down for the rest of staff. I think the COLA discussion, and I don't know if that's gonna, I know, Ben, we all have a task of reviewing these policies and getting back to you, but that is one that I want to get on that. I think we just have to have a real candid discussion of, I think there's certain levels that absolutely the COLA needs to apply to.
Yes.
Don't necessarily know that that applies to.
It should come to the board. I don't think it came to the
Right.
board last time. Totally wrong.
Yeah, so I think those are things we'll address, but again, I'm totally comfortable with the negotiations with Mr. Larragetta and putting it to you, Madam Chair, and I do want to just take the opportunity too. I know, Eddie, you brought this up. It's been quite a process we've been in. Some out of our control, some, within, but I do want to thank you, Madam Chair, for you've stepped into a role. I want to thank staff, quite honestly. It's a tough position when you're kind of navigating in uncharted waters and you don't necessarily have that position filled. So I do want to thank all of the RSCVA staff for really holding together and keeping the organization going. So I'm looking forward to getting things back on track and rolling here. So, but I do want to just call out the RSCVA staff for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. East?
Ready for a motion?
Yeah.
We've got,
I'll have to go.
we've got a motion and a second, and just to, well, no, we have. I had another motion.
Yeah, exactly. We already
I'm
did
on
that.
this, so I'm looking for a motion. Mr. East,
Certainly, yeah. I'd like to make a motion to authorize the chair and legal counsel to negotiate an employment agreement with Mike Larragetta. Second.
okay, got a motion by Mr. East, I've got a second by Mr. Murdoch. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioner. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And I look forward to the opportunity with us having a guideline we've already set in September to sit down with Mr. Larragetta, but always keeping in mind whatever Mike and I and council decide, we'll come back to this body. And maybe if any of you have specific things you want to let me know before I go in to negotiations, please let me know. But we will bring it back and this board will make decisions and changes if needed at that time.
Good, just go through the last contract and then.
And the last one too
Very
was interesting for those of us that sat on that committee that hammered and hammered and hammered. I mean, that was a long process that a lot of time was put in and we hear you on things that were not okay. And we can take what was done and hammered out by some committee and look at.
Just having those parameters out there now and letting those candidates know it should
Yeah.
limit the negotiation within those.
Yeah, and then we'll be able to do that and bring it back in 2 weeks to our board meeting, Mr. Murdoch.
What I want to say is, as a committee, we had the finance committee, and we had to review the last CEOs.
It was finance that did
Yeah, it
all
was
that.
finance that did all that. So
Which was
that's
Stephen
still,
and Rick and I think.
yeah, well, it was the three of us.
Yes.
No, well, it wasn't then. It wasn't there.
It was
You
you,
and me,
you and
Bob.
I, and Bob. What,
somebody else.
and then.
And Silver.
My point is that still in effect too, Ben? Is that committee, because that committee reviewed, we were the reviewing,
Was
Right.
finance.
yeah, and you weren't subject to.
And
The CEO.
Necessarily, but that was not a contract. The contract was negotiated with Mr. Hornstein and came back to the board. I think it was actually the executive legislative committee would come back and discuss those.
None of us were on this board except for me.
You would discuss the goals related to the CEO, because annually, those are done annually.
So when do you discuss those goals?
Well, because like the time frame you're in, you will be setting goals for the new fiscal year starting July 1. So
Right.
it needs to be happening right now. That,
That's what happened after the contract.
do the contract for the next 2 weeks and then set an executive legislative committee meeting to discuss what those goals should be.
That's what I was trying to
Okay.
figure it all out. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, real quick, I'm up to item D, comments, board comments, announcements. Do you have an announcement for us, Mr. J?
About 2 minutes, we're gonna be voting on the car rental facility, so I need to exit myself and take an office over here,
You
so.
can vote.
You did that. Awesome.
You can vote.
That's dedication.
Yeah.
You're doing two
Multitasking.
boards at once.
Do I have other board members?
Mom?
Yeah. Any board member comments, Mr. Evelyn?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, through the process, I explained, shared with you a lot of the frustration and how the last couple months have been going. Mind you, been thrilled about how we've moved as a board and, our leadership retreat, a lot of great things. That said, I mentioned policy issues, and I've had a chance to sit down with my representative, the Reno Sparks Chamber of Commerce, to talk about what things can make, changes can make the operations of our board a little bit better. And so I know we cannot discuss and take action on items today, but I did do a little due diligence working with CEO Ann Silver, and we looked specifically at a rule procedure around how the chair and vice chair and the CEO coordinates and create more transparency to the public and give us an opportunity to move. And so I have a recommendation that I'd like to, pursuant to Rule 9.2, have introduced into the record at this meeting so that we can entertain it at a prior meeting. And I have a amendment on behalf of the Reno Sparks Chamber of Commerce that I support as well, that I think would be valuable for our board proceedings. I'll give this to Myra. She could put it into sort of the record and we can entertain it at the next meeting.
Sure, so we can discuss it at the next meeting. So I think.
Yeah, we can't discuss it today.
Right, and the rule you're referencing is the one that says changes have to be made in 2 consecutive meetings. So the next meeting would be the first reading of that, and then we could consider it.
No.
The fall.
So what I'm reading is amendment to the rules. Rules may be amended or new rules adopted by a majority vote of all board members, provided that the proposed amendment or new rules have been introduced into the record at a prior board meeting. So all I'm doing is introducing it into the record so you all can have my version to consider, contemplate prior to when we meet next, and then we can have a discussion and take action on this at the next meeting.
So we can discuss that. So we can't
discuss this today.
Right, but you and I can discuss the process for the amending rules.
Well, would this be something?
I'm reading.
We are looking at policy, and there's been requests from board members for looking at our general policy, and Ben sent us all ours and the Vegas's so that we can compare. We are going to be going into policy, and then the HR policy requests, which actually HR has policies that have been rewritten and updated that have been sitting there because we don't have a CEO. So I know Dee Dee has already, so those 2 policy things will be an agenda item that we need to. Can we fit that? Can we address this as part of the policy discussion that we want to have on a bigger level?
So in plain reading, and again, the way I read the rule, and I read it to this committee, there's no action needs to be taken.
Okay.
It literally says, introduced into the record at a prior board meeting. This is a board meeting. I'm introducing into the record a rule change. The next board meeting, I'm expecting us as a board, on behalf of the Reno Sparks Chamber of Commerce, to entertain this potential board policy amendment. That's it.
So you don't want a part of the greater policy discussion and changes we could be making?
So myself and the Reno Sparks Chamber of Commerce believe, again, I don't know if we're allowed to be discussing this now, but believe that this amendment, it will be helpful in everything that's happened and then us moving forward. That's the goal.
So I would leave it at that, and we can discuss it and bring it back in the future.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm going to give personnel
That sounds good.
electronically to.
Any of the
So
board-
I assume at the next meeting then.
So this would be entertained at a next meeting.
Yeah, but it'll be on the agenda, correct?
So I want to have the discussion. I don't agree with that interpretation. It's similar to the city. That's what the idea is. When you adopt new ordinances at the city, you agendize it on a meeting, you read it into the record, and then the next meeting is when you entertain it and discuss it.
Yeah,
That's what our rules, that's how our process is supposed to go. So we have it.
yeah.
We can put it on the agenda at the next meeting. We can introduce it into the record, and then the following meeting, we
Because
can.
part of the
we can
issue
discuss.
too, because, and I don't know, but I'm thinking, you saying that, but part of the issue, and I think, and I don't know your reasoning, but for me, I think, under these rules, it's all governed by the chair of what can be discussed, how the agenda is managed, all those things.
And so all discussions we can have, but not right now.
Okay, but am I right?
Yes, so the chair and the CEO working in concert set the agenda. We will take this and deal with it at a future meeting. I don't want to go further down the path of discussing policy changes right now because we're not agendized.
But I guess we should agendize so we can get there.
Yes.
But I guess point of order, My concern is that the voice of the Reno Sparks Chamber of Commerce has the opportunity to introduce this into the record per the rules and entertain it at the next board meeting for action. Now, if you disagree with how things are introduced in the record, I know that I have the ability to request a majority vote with the board so it can be introduced into the record if that's your pleasure.
Yeah, so we're not voting on anything. We're not agendized to vote on anything right now. We're in board member comments. There's no action.
But I think you could, right?
First of all, I can ask for a majority vote of the board to waive rules. So then I can then introduce it into the record. I guess my point is, I'm not sure why I'm getting pushback on introducing something that we can consider the next board meeting.
Right, because as legal counsel and the way we've practiced in the past that we've always done this, introducing in the record means you agendize it, you read it into the record, right? We're
It's like
not,
a first reading.
right, it's same as every municipality does it, is what it's modeled after. And I don't want to have the argument here. I'm happy to talk to you and we can agendize it at the next meeting. And if the board wants to waive the rules at the next meeting, we can discuss that possibility. But I don't really want to keep going down this path at this point. I'm happy to discuss it. And if there's a way we can get it to be addressed, discussed, voted on in 2 weeks, I'm fine doing that.
Well, let me ask you
Let's
this.
do that.
Couldn't Charlene, as the chair, entertain and say, yes, happy to put on the agenda?
The board can waive its policies and procedures. We can do that at the next meeting if that's the board's pleasure, yes. But not here right now.
Yeah. 'Cause so I agree, we need to respect council for right now. And absolutely, I'll let two of you talk and I'll be in conversation with them.
And
Whether
what
next
you're
meeting
saying
it's-
is you just put it on, like,
Whether,
it's a request and then it goes into the agenda.
Yes, so the next meeting will be on the agenda. If the board wants to vote to waive the second reading, essentially, then that's fine. We
I
can do
guess
that
you
next
can
meeting when we're
confirm it will be
agendized.
on the next agenda, correct?
yes,
Yeah, I guess part of the fear is
Yeah.
sometimes you might go to a chair and they say, no, sorry, that's not going on the agenda because they have the purview to do that, correct?
Correct,
Yeah, so that's the fear. We want it to come on the next agenda.
understood.
Okay, I got it.
Well,
yeah, and I can do that. Did I have any other announcements?
I'll just do a point of information, Madam Chair. Mr. Kennedy, it's my understanding that the Reeves introduced into the record at a meeting. And so my question to you is, notwithstanding what the city of Reno does, the city of Sparks does, Washoe County Board of Supervisors, or the Las Vegas Visitor Convention Committee, which I read all their rules, which are robust and has so much to offer to us for consideration. My understanding, and we need to get another opinion on this, is everything we do at this board meeting is introduced into the record. All of our actions. When a board member talks about their stakeholder, they're introducing something into the record. And that is what I am doing on behalf of my representative group.
Understood.
Okay, thank you.
My final announcement or update, tonight, the Wolfpack men play at 6:00
Yay,
on CBS Sportsnet, I think.
yay.
6:00, tune in. Oh, boy. And absolutely go Pack. Unfortunately, the women are out after one game, which was really sad, but tune into the game tonight and all I can say is go Pack. We're going to the big dance already, but really would be nice to see them win the whole Mountain West tournament. And if they don't, we know we've got bigger things coming after that. So just good luck to the Wolfpack tonight. Comments, moving on to item F, comments, public comments.
I would like to public comment. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Before, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
First of all, I want to say thank you so much to Tina and Winter's partner Dennis. You guys did a really, really great job. You really did. I know, like, Steven said it was a little rocky at times, but sometimes whenever things aren't that difficult, then they're not worth having, right? You got to appreciate some of the adversity that comes along with the success. I also want to acknowledge the RSCVA team. I've worked with all of you guys for 10 years. I probably worked the closest with them because of all the conferences. People call my office. How do we do a convention? How do we do an event? And then I throw it over to you guys. And so And I want to say thank you because honestly, it's been easy for me to sit in this seat. I think it's been hard for you guys to sit in that seat. I would have PTSD too. So I just want to acknowledge you guys. Honestly, no, because I haven't felt like for years and years that you were ever heard and acknowledged for the success that you guys actually brought to the table, not the CEO. And that's how it will be moving forward. And it really shouldn't be the CEO going, look how great I am. It's really all of you guys. So I want to acknowledge that. I also do want to acknowledge, congratulations to Mr. Larragetta. I honestly think this is a tough job and someone that wants this tough job. Obviously, I felt like he really fought for it. And it really hit home to me today that in his presentation, from the last CEOs that I've heard, it's been sort of this blanket presentation, almost like a template. And you could really tell, and this was one of the reasons why I really wanted us to look at local candidates, is that he understood the region. And he called out, all parts of our city, things that people would not have known unless you were from this region. And so I wanted to say moving forward, yes, we're living in some really strange times. The world is very fragmented. I would just ask that as we move forward, that we all support each other, whether you like them or not. I'm very proud that this board had a unanimous vote today. It shows that we're moving on. We did the same thing with Charles. So now we put one in front of the other. And let's root for Reno, Tahoe, and Sparks.
Thank you. Mr. Scarlett.
No, and I don't mean to belittle, I was bringing it back to the policy discussion earlier, but.
Oh, God.
Just for clarification, though, Ben, on timeline, because I know you sent it out to us. When were you hoping to have everybody's comments back?
So that's been a project that we've probably been sort of working on for about 5 years. So sooner rather than later, I'm certainly not going to say, I think Friday was the original deadline. I'm not going to say, if you don't get back to me by then, you lose your voice.
Right.
When board members can get to it. So if you haven't gotten to it and you want to get me comments, then just let me know. Hold off. I'm still working on it. I'm fine with that. There's not a hard deadline here. And I think it's more important to get comments from everybody than to speed the process along.
No, and I agree. I think it's an open opportunity. This is the cleanup, right? And I know when I kind of glazed over on the first pass through of my, I don't have my legalese, but I think there are, we all probably have a few areas that we're more familiar with that would warrant some cleanup. So again, I'll make sure we get my comments back to you too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Long.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to mention that I was at a Nevada Legislative Committee meeting on March 8th at the TRPA. It's the committee that oversees the TRPA and the Marlette Water System. They had asked the organizations that collect transient occupancy tax to do a presentation that could collect tax from the Tahoe Basin. So the RSCVA presented, the Tahoe Douglas organization presented, Courtney Jager and Ben McDonald presented for the RCVA, did a fantastic job. One of the senators said it was one of the most clear presentations she had seen and really complimented them on that presentation. But to move a little further here, Chair Daley was very clear that he wants to see more tax dollars that are collected in the Tahoe Basin and help mitigate tourism impacts in the basin. He doesn't want to have to present this in law. He just wants to see these organizations, the RSCVA and the Tahoe Douglas organization, put more of their money back into transportation. And he even did say infrastructure in the basin. So I just wanted to put that on the record that this committee is really interested in seeing more tax dollars go back into tourism mitigation efforts within the Tahoe Basin.
And Greg, quick question. Would you be ready, you or Andy, to come to the March meeting? No, we're going to do April for the relooking at TART because you have other funding sources that could have, and you asked me and I did let the mayor know, but for all of you, instead of coming back in March to revisit that, there's opportunities that you'll know when you come to us in April. If you've gotten them or not, and it would be a better conversation. Let me get his answer and then I'll
Andy's working on that presentation, getting the proper authorities here to present.
Okay, great.
For,
Okay, I do have you on the agenda for that.
Okay.
Just wanted to confirm.
okay.
Okay, Mr. Murdock.
Thanks, Madam Chair. For my ignorance, what committee is that?
So that is the committee that oversees the TRPA, the Tahoe Regional Planning Association in the Tahoe Basin. They also oversee the Marlette Water System. So they are overseeing how TRPA and the Tahoe Basin function.
Is that legislative?
I'm sorry, it is a legislative committee.
Is it Nevada politicians?
It is all Nevada. It's a Nevada legislative committee.
It is Nevada.
It's all Nevada, yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. The only last comment I have that I almost forgot, and I apologize. I want to thank staff for the time they've given me in the last, how long has it been? 6, 8, 9 months, whatever. Every other week I've met with the vice presidents. And then once a month I've met with extended staff, and you guys have given me the opportunity to sit in on the operational side, which as a board, we do policy and budget. And so really for me, the learning curve and what I've been able to observe and learn from you guys on exactly what's going on, the properties, the finances, the, groups coming in, has been super valuable for me. So can't tell you how much I appreciate all of your time and allowing me to sit in on those meetings, get that information, and for all of us together, keeping this organization running, everybody doing their job and doing what we're supposed to do, whether it's the board, but most importantly, you, our employees. It hasn't collapsed, it's thrived, and I really feel positive about that. But a lot of it is due to all of your hard work, as the mayor has said, and I appreciate the time you gave me, once a month or twice a month for some of you, of sharing all of that with you. And now I don't need to be in on those because we do have a CEO who I'm going to let Mike take that and call me if you need me. Okay. Mr. Avasar.
He was like, yes, I will. Ben's like,
Mr.
yes.
Avasar.
So, Madam Chair, just a comment to Mr. Long's comment about the impending meeting in April. I would request that you reach out to the other organizations up there and request for them to show up. Perhaps Chair Schmitz can show up, and maybe some of the other organizations that we work with up there can be here present. We can have an opportunity to question them about their responsibilities and roles in that as well.
Good idea.
Okay. All right. I think we are at comments, public comments. I went there and then I went back.
None at this time. Can we put one more thing on the agenda or consideration? I would like to talk about, because of the city, I was thinking, we also do like every other Wednesday attorney-client. And if there's nothing to discuss, then we sort of dismiss it. But we know it's sort of on the agenda in case there are items or legal suits that we're involved in, or any of those things for updates. I'd like to deal with it, maybe schedule those on our agendas as we move forward. And if we have nothing to talk about, then we dismiss them.
So I know we do the same thing in a whole separate meeting, like an hour before my council meeting.
Yeah.
If there's needed attorney-client, then we have those. Do you want them as needed? Do you want them, would it be
Yeah,
before
I
9
think they
a.m.
need to be
meetings?
scheduled so that they do happen. Otherwise, it's hard to chase them down. Then you gotta call us on the phone individually. It's like trying to wrangle in a whole bunch of people with crazy schedules and herding cats.
So are you looking
So
for
I
like
think the fact that the way we do it at the city is that we always have it on our, like every other agenda. And if we don't have anything pertinent to anything legal, then we're just like, oh, nothing today. We move on.
Okay, and do you do yours right before your meetings?
We actually do ours at lunch, but I don't care when we do it. We can do it before, we can do it after, whatever you guys want. But I do want the opportunity for the board to, if there are questions, instead of having, these like trying to figure out when the next one, because you have to call it. And then we're all trying to get on the phone or, whenever you call them. So it's just nice. It stays on top of the questions and the legal. I was thinking about that yesterday in our attorney clients, that it just always gives us the opportunity to ask anything where we're at also, on,
Yeah, outside of a public meeting, which really, yes, to your point, those are super valuable. Because you can really, they're not public, the attorney-clients are, so gives us the opportunity. Most times, unfortunately, ours all have to do with litigation.
So that's the issue, right? So we can only have attorney-client to discuss potential or actual litigation. So thankfully, unlike the cities, the RSCVA typically does not have
yeah,
litigation going. So that's why we don't have them regularly scheduled, because we can only do it when we're dealing with litigation. So we can talk, I'm happy to have the
I mean, it doesn't have to
discussion.
be every other, but I do think we should schedule, it could be,
Just a reserved
once
spot.
once every
Cancel.
2 months, 3 months. I don't want to talk about it here, but we sometimes do, I think there are legal concerns about buildings, things like that, so I would like to have updates. I realized that yesterday. I was like, oh, this is good that we constantly, not constantly, but we have the opportunity to have an update.
Sure, yeah, we can talk.
Okay. Okay, no public comments, I'll come back again.
No, no, I'm just kidding.
No, okay, so I will close public comments and we are adjourned.